I don't know. You know Smitty, right?
Yeah,
Diesel,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul and Smitty run like this kind of business and personal development group. So they asked me to come out to speak for that. So that's what I originally went there for. And then so my wife was like, "Should I come?" And I just same thing. I was like, "Dude, the pace we're gonna be on for 6 days is gonna be nonstop. Like you're not gonna have fun. You're gonna be just pissed that you came. So just hang out here." Yeah.
Well, and then when you're hanging out with your buddies, it's like everything's so centered around the gym, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, especially people in the fitness industry, it's like, all right, what gym are we going to hit up? And then like what place we're going to eat at. It all
those
lines
are two
up.
main things.
And your wife will be like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
She'll be bored to tears.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done about 15 podcasts since I got here. And then on top of that, I just was thinking about it when I went into the gym today. So I have this weird thing where I go into the gym and I either do my cardio or my lifting.
Okay.
But it's not an official second workout unless I leave the gym and like change my shirt. So I go into the parking lot and I change my shirt. And I come in, I'm like workout number 2, and I check in again and go pink.
I gotta steal that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I probably have worked out whatever the hell day it is, multiply that by 2, and that's how many times I've worked out since I've been here.
Wow.
I've just been killing myself.
Yeah.
And I haven't really felt much of anything until yesterday. Yesterday, finally, I was like, we were about midway through the workout, and I was like, ooh, that's not feeling so good. Like, there was nothing left.
Right.
I'm like, oh, you just got to suck it up. But there was nothing. There was nothing to suck up. There was no deeper, nothing left,
So what are you doing, like a body part split now?
Yeah, it's like a, standard kind of bodybuilding style workout. Like, doesn't matter what day it is, but the body part just keeps rotating around every 5 days or so.
Okay.
But we haven't taken any days off, which I don't know if that's smart or not. But that's just the way we've been rolling. I've been training with Mike O'Hearn and my brother, and Heath Evans has been joining in, and my friend Daniel Rago, and even some of our own camera crew and some of our own guys that we have been jumping in, and we've just been smashing ourselves.
Wow.
Do you end up training by yourself a lot?
I do, which I don't love. That was what was great about the trip is I got to train with somebody every time.
Yeah.
And then, what it's like having your own place. So I was used to have my own place for 15 years. So I would train with a crew all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I've been here 7 years, I haven't really found an ideal scenario yet that I love. But I'd much prefer training with one.
You've been in this area
people.
for 7 years?
Yeah.
And then where were you previously to that?
Jersey for 36 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was where I had my gym. Central Jersey, had the gym for 15 years.
I thought you were out here longer for some reason.
Nah, just 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I couldn't take another winter, though. I had to get out. Yeah.
Was that kind of the main reason for the move? Was
well, the reason for the move, there was a bunch of reasons for the move. I just wanted to, like, I love this, right? Like, you can't beat
the
this.
ocean, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're East Coast guy. Like, being out here is awesome. I love it. So that was definitely part of it. But I kind of reached a point in my life where, I don't know, I just had this awareness and this awakening where I was like, man, I'm not really living the way I want to live. And I identified, like, I was always really insecure and shy and socially awkward. And I had a lot of anger and bitterness from childhood and a lot of things.
Good to see that nothing's changed.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, man, I gotta make some changes,
Yeah.
And I started to become more aware. Like, when you're not aware of it, you don't really know when everyone you hang out with is complaining or they're negative or they're gossiping all the time. And then when you make this kind of switch, you're like, man, I never noticed how much that guy fucking complains or bitches or talks shit about everybody. And I was like, I got to get away from these people. But some people can do it and kind of reinvent themselves where they are.
Right.
I couldn't. I was like, I gotta move the other side of the country and reinvent myself and kind of create this new environment of people that I want to be around. I mean, the importance of being around people who are living the life.
Everybody in New Jersey's like, that son of a bitch right now.
No, and that's the thing. I always want to clarify, like, it's not just Jersey. I mean, there's definitely a stereotypical New York, New Jersey attitude. Right. And it's funny because we were just back there and I was cursing more and had a little more attitude for a few days.
You sound just like them after a while.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Shit, they're just going right back into your own habits.
Yeah.
But that is really important to try to find, people that are positive and we all complain, right? I mean, that's just, who even knows why? Who even knows why it's part of human nature? But for some reason, what I find interesting about a complaint is that, like, if I'm complaining to you about something I'm going to keep complaining to you as if I'm trying to convince you of it.
Right.
And that's kind of the danger of it, because then you might be somewhat convinced of it, and it might make your feelings towards that thing worse.
Yeah.
Kind of it just drags the room
Exactly.
down.
That's why I think it's so important to get away from people who are doing that all the time, because no matter how many books you read and personal development things you try to do, it's like, man, if everyone around you is constantly bringing you down, like the crabs in a bucket thing, it's hard. Like, you got to be superhuman to overcome that. So to get away, and I knew that environment triggers behavior. So like, even the people I was around, I could not call them back and not hang out with them as much. But for me, it was just like driving past certain areas or being around certain family members or whatever. I was like, man, they're just holding me down, and I'm going back into that place. So had to move, reinvent myself, and just kind of create that environment with the kind of people that I wanted to be around. And
has the weather been a big difference too?
Oh yeah. Like a seasonal disorder, depression, whatever it is real. Like if when you're back east and it you don't see the sun in the winter and it's 15 degrees for like 2 weeks straight, like you're bummed out.
Isn't it nuts when the weather changes here?
Yeah.
Like if it gets, first of all, it's Los Angeles, so it's very rare for it to even be too hot.
Right. Yeah.
And just like a week ago, it was too hot for everybody. Everybody's flipping out.
Everyone's freaking out.
It sucks. Everybody was so mad. Or if it rains for like 2 or 3 days in a row, it's pretty unheard of.
Yeah.
People are like,
they can't drive. They don't know what to do.
People are losing their mind. There's nobody at the gym. Everyone's too depressed to get out of bed. People can't handle it.
Can't get out of bed. It's funny because we left in the middle of that heat wave and everyone was complaining, and then we get to New York and it's 100 with like 100% humidity. That was a totally different kind of heat.
That humidity's bad. You get out of the shower and you're just still like wet. You're like, I just toweled off. How am I still wet? Like,
we were in the city just walking around all day shooting, and I went through like 4 T-shirts just completely soaked. Yeah.
How did all this start? I remember, years ago, you and I have known each other for a long time. We've known of each other for a long time. And this is the first time that we actually met in person.
Which is still crazy to me.
You're handsome as hell. I got to say that.
Thank you.
I first started to learn about you through Elite and started to see some of the success you were having as a trainer and as a coach. And at that time, it wasn't everybody was jumping into the fitness industry. It wasn't like everybody was, hey, I'm going to be a strength coach and I'm going to like make some money and I'm going to train people independently. But that's what you were doing, and you were kind of the go-to guy. I think I remember I can't remember if it was a phone call or just exchanges back and forth long before I ever had super training.
Yeah, we talked on the phone long before that.
Yeah, some exchanges, and you were like, well, this is kind of how it works, how I charge people, and this is, how I do some of these things. I guess, first of all, like, how did you kind of get into some of that? Yeah,
so I was... Same thing as you. We're 2 years apart. I grew up watching Stallone and Schwarzenegger and The Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan and everybody, So I was like, man, I want to be like those guys. And I was just this skinny, fat kind of dweeb, And so my cousin Christine in 1987 was dating a dude named Eric Wida, and he was a pro wrestler, not with WWF. It was some other small federation. But this dude was 6'4", 250, jacked out of his mind.
The East Coast, for some reason, too, is full of people like that.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up with, like, at least 20 or 30 people around that were like that.
Right. And he had, like, the, like a shaved mullet type of deal going. Yeah. And so he got me into training, and that was just
personal training or
no, he just wrote me a workout and a diet, and I was just this chubby little weakling, and I started doing that. And then I just became obsessed with it. So I continued to read more stuff. And you remember back then, like, you couldn't, there was no internet or anything. So the back of Iron Man magazine would have all those books you could order. So I started ordering a bunch of old books, like, Super Squats and John McCallum and all that kind of stuff. And just became obsessed.
Some of the old school stuff.
Yeah. Even like Hackenschmidt and Saxon and all that. And I really became obsessed with it. And then so I went into college as a communications major, which looking back was kind of delusional because I wanted to either like be on SportsCenter or like host a radio show. But back then I was so insecure I barely said a word, so it was a waste.
Didn't make any sense.
Yeah. So and then I started interning in the weight room. Like I was just hooked. I interned in the weight room, and then sophomore junior year of school, I got super sick. I had to transfer home, and I was on bed. I actually got tuberculosis, which I didn't think anyone since Doc Holliday got that. So I had to be in bed. I was in the hospital for a week, and the doctor said if I didn't come that day, and they drained like a pint of fluid out of my lungs. He said, if you waited till tomorrow, you would have drowned. Your lungs would have filled up.
Wow.
Yeah, so I go home, and I had to take like 15 pills for a year that turned my piss like fire engine red. But anyway, during that time when I was home, I got my first personal trainer certification. Later that summer, I started training people, just bouncing around to like their houses, and I was charging $20 an hour, you know. And for whatever reason, and I didn't really know anything about business, and I wasn't even that good of a trainer at the beginning, but it kind of just grew kind of rapidly. I had good luck at the beginning, and then by the end of that summer, I was actually on pace to make 6 figures when I was like 19. So I transferred back home, went to Seton Hall, and I started running the business, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And 2 years later, I saved up the money from bouncing around different people's houses to rent some small space. It was literally underground. We talk about underground gyms. It was in a basement.
Right.
It's 1,000 square feet. And I knew that I was like, man, I really want to train athletes and like young guys who want to clang and bang and get after it and go hard. So just the other day, we were in the city, and we met up with Mike Schwab, who at that time was 12 years old, and he was my first athlete client. He's now 36. So 24 years ago, I started training Mike, and he's still like a little brother to me, which is super cool to see, you know?
That's great.
Mike came in, he was a really good wrestler, he was a really good football player, and started training him. And by that time, I was like into some West Side stuff and like Anthony DiTillo, like some 70s powerlifting, Bill Starr, like all that stuff. So I was still experimenting and finding out what worked and trying all this stuff. And Mike was getting great results. And again, back then it was like you either go to like Bally's and do like a bodybuilding workout, or it wasn't today where every corner has like a hardcore warehouse style gym or a CrossFit. You know, there's none of that.
A lot of squat racks and sleds and places do battle ropes and kettlebells.
Yeah, and nobody had that.
That's what we have now. Yeah.
Yeah. So in 1996 was when I opened up the facility. There was a book called Dinosaur Training, which I'm sure.
Yeah.
Brooks Kubik, and he was the first guy that introduced me to all the stuff you just mentioned: sleds, ropes, sandbags, tires. And so you couldn't get it. Like there was no Rogue Fit. You couldn't go on and order it. So in New York and Jersey, like you had to know a guy who knew a guy, and you could like go to the docks where the boats come in and get those ropes. We made our own sandbags. We would get anvils from places. You'd have to go to a liquor store and beg the guys like, yo, can I buy an empty keg, and then like figure out a way to like seal it up and shit. So, well, back to Mike first. Mike was getting such great results that he referred me like 3 other friends who were superstar athletes. And then within probably 2 or 3 months, they all wanted to start training together. So I started training them together, and nobody was doing group training at the time. And I was like, well, let's just train them together, and then I'll make it half of what the adult rate is. And that was how I kind of came up with this system. And then before long, I would have, after school every day, I would have 50 to 70 high school kids coming in and training in groups of like 8 to 12 until 7 at night. And then I would train with a group of guys our age. Well, you know, back then I was way younger, but anywhere between like 28 and 50, I would have this group of like 12 guys our age that used to train. And that was my life for like 12 years straight, just doing that kind of stuff. And I think I remember the first time like a big sports-specific facility opened up like a mile away, and I was like, oh, shit, this is going to crush us. And it absolutely did nothing for my business, because I had every single school within like, I don't know how many mile radius. I had the rushing leader, like all kinds of record holders, and people just, that place struggled to make money, but we were just killing it there, and it was awesome. And I think that was when I first spoke to you, because you were considering doing something for the first time, and Dave Tate was like, oh, you should talk to Jay about some stuff.
Yeah, I was kicking around the idea of super training, and it was something I thought about every day for, months on end, but I couldn't figure it out because I just didn't have any money. So I'm like, and I just always would look at different spots, and I'm like, that would be cool to have a gym there, but I could never figure out like, how the hell do I get started? How do I pay the rent? Like I've trained people before, but I used to live here in Los Angeles, and I've trained people before at some different gyms and stuff, but I was always thinking like, well, if I started my own spot, like I'm not popular enough to really have like, a big following to do anything like that. And then my wife and I moved around the country a little bit. I went to West Side and learned some stuff from Louie. And once I kind of acquired that knowledge, that really helped. That was a game changer, because then at least I had something under my belt that was going to allow me to be able to express myself differently. Like I was like you, I was pretty shy. But once I started to know once I started to understand what I was learning, And once I was able to put up like points on a scoreboard by like squatting 1,000 pounds and stuff like that, then it's like, well, I don't feel like I'm bragging, and I don't feel like I'm talking about something that I don't know anything about because I just squatted 1,000 pounds, you know. And so it became easier and easier to talk about it. And then, you know, super training, it just took a long time for me to kind of make the jump and you know, kind of just hit the start button and go. But you know, the first place I started out at was I started out in somebody else's gym, which was a nice baby step into it. And then it just progressively kept kind of moving and moving. We have like 5 different versions of
Where was the first one?
Yeah, so the first super training gym was inside of somebody else's gym called Body Construction Zone. That was in Woodland, California, and they fitted the bill for everything. They bought all the equipment. They bought it from Elite. And what happened was,
that's right. Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, they bought it from Elite, and they bought it through me. You know, when I was jackass on Elite, right?
Yeah.
So they bought it for a discounted rate. Well, these people were so dumb they don't even remember what they bought it for. So they made me like the general manager of this place. Plus, I was a trainer, and so I was getting a check every week. That was significant because I wasn't making any money before that. So it was the only thing I knew, and things were looking pretty good. And then one week I didn't get a check. And I started asking each person. They're like, "Oh, you got to talk to so and so." And these were people that I actually knew. So I was like, "Guys, just like if I'm not getting a check, like if there's something wrong, just somebody's got to just let me know. I have a family. Like I need to know what's going on."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, things aren't going so good here." And I was like, "Okay, well, you know, somebody should have told me ahead of time that some of this was, you know, going to happen." And I said, "Well, here's what I'd like to do. I don't want to, you know, get into any like legal battle with you or anything, and I don't want to sit here and fight over it. All I want to be able to do is buy the equipment." And I knew that they didn't know how much the equipment even cost because they were super careless, and that's why the gym was going under anyway.
Right.
So they were like, "Okay, well, what do you think it's worth?" I said, "Oh, I'd like to buy it from you like right now for like $5,000, but it was like $15K worth of stuff very easily."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Okay, we'll get back to you." And I think we settled on $6,000, and that was that. That was kind of the beginning stages of super training because I bought a deadlift platform, a bench, monolift, glute ham raises, and you know how expensive all the bars are.
Yeah.
I bought all the bars, all the plates. We still have a lot of the equipment, you know, in super training now, so that ended up working out really well. But it was hard just to even, you know, it was hard to even just get started.
Yeah.
That was probably the hardest part of the whole thing. As you you know, so you don't do that anymore. Do you miss some of that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Like when
the interaction with the kids and stuff, and these younger high school guys
that's huge. Yeah.
they're just savage, and they like. I'm sure they share all kinds of stuff with you too. So there's that side of it as well, right?
Yeah. And you know that from working with kids. Like for me, it was cool to see a kid, let's say, get a scholarship or break a record or something like that. But it makes you feel better when the parents come up to you and like they're like, "Mark, you know, so-and-so's a better person because of what you did for," like that really makes a huge difference. So, and kids are so impressionable at that age. So to be able to do that kind of stuff, you miss that. I do miss the atmosphere. I mean, like I said, we were just back home and we were
you literally can mentor some of these. I'm sure you trained females as well, but you can literally mentor some of these young men into how to become men, right?
Yeah.
And they see it from the other athletes that are older.
Yep.
And it trickles down, right?
Yeah, and then it's cool to see the guys who start with you, let's say freshman year, and then by the time they're a junior in college, now they've become kind of like a coach under you, and they're mentoring and teaching the younger kids. And then
you're like, wow, this is really working pretty good.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. And then it's fun to see them kind of like, you know, make the younger kids kind of earn their spot and kind of, you know, abuse them a little bit, punk them out and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely miss that. You know, I was with Joe DeFranco the other day, and we were saying the same thing. We both kind of miss that.
He still trains people and stuff, right?
He still trains a few people here and there. He trains Triple H and Steph, and a few pro guys, but nowhere near what he used to do.
How about for you? What do you do nowadays?
So I got the podcast. I run. There's about 6 of my own events a year. I still have an online coaching platform. Mm-hmm. So we have Renegade Strength Club, where we have I post workouts monthly and do Q&As in there. So that's a big part of it. I do a lot of speaking, and those are about the main things.
When you left New Jersey, did you like sell the business or something? Or
so what I did was I tried to run it cross country with my brother running it, And my brother and I don't have the relationship that you and Chris have. We're complete opposites and not really quite as close.
Yeah.
So that was a disaster. It was a complete clusterfuck. And within about a year, and that year was super stressful, I was like, dude, you buy the gym off of me or I got to sell it to somebody else. And he's like, yeah, I'll just buy you out. And then he changed the name and did other things. So it's better. We have a much better relationship now because that was a disaster. And then the first year or two we were here, everywhere I would drive by and see a sign, I would write down the number and call and thought about opening up a place here. And then that kind of faded for a while. Things were going well, just doing my own thing. And you know, like I was discussing with Joe the other day is, after you put in 15 years of 12 hours a day in the gym, like you get burnt out, you know, really burnt out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to not have that now, be able to do this and be able to travel and do other things, which I love, you know, so I wouldn't be able to do that if I was still in the gym that much. Now, that said, recently we've started looking for space again, but I don't think I would ever turn it into a business, you know, the way I used to. It would be more just for a place for friends to train, just shoot some content and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
What are some things that you learned from having that facility and working with those kids? Because there must be like just a lot of kind of life lessons that you learned, you know, things what to do and things not to do, and things that you probably still carry on, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Like, if you talk like from a business perspective or life perspective or both.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the business side of it.
Well, the business side is I made the mistake that I think so many entrepreneurs and small business owners make is you try to do everything yourself, and you have to at first.
No one else can do it the way you can.
Exactly. Yeah. At first, when you can't afford it, you kind of have to. Like, you're answering
that's that's that mindset, right? Like, you can't get out of that for some reason. No one's going to be able to do it like me.
Yeah, it's tough to get over that. For sure, you have to relinquish control, and that's really tough. But at first, if you're starting out and you don't have a ton of money, yeah, you probably have to clean the toilets and answer the phones and train everybody. But eventually, once you can afford to, you should hire people, outsource stuff. Right. And now it's so much easier. Like, you can get virtual assistants online. There's so many things you can do that we couldn't do back then. But that was a huge mistake, and I think a lot of people make that mistake of, just like you said, no one can do it better than me. Right. So those were huge mistakes, and not hiring people sooner, not outsourcing sooner. And then I think what I would say is specializing more early. So when you're hungry and you need to pay the bills, you say yes to everybody. So if a guy came in and is 60 and needs a whole prehab program, I'd say yes to him. And then I'd say yes to high school athletes, and yes to this person, yes to that person. Now, granted, 75% of my clients were athletes, but I was still training so many other people. And that, I think, prevented me from being even better than I could if I just said I only train athletes. Because then if a guy who plays golf comes in and he's all banged up, he comes in on a Thursday, he's going to start training on a Monday. I'm like, I really have no idea how to rehab this guy's shoulder, but I got to figure it out by Monday. You know what I mean? Right. So I'm kind of diluting my focus, trying to do all this stuff. And then in certain people's eyes, you become a jack of all trades and a master of none. So, which is why I think I give the advice to people starting out, like, focus on one thing and do it really well.
There is something good about telling people no too. Like,
exactly.
Like then they're like, wait, this is exclusive?
Totally, yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm sorry, dude, but
yeah,
it may not be for you because we train really hard. And then they're like, what? Like, I want to train really hard.
Yeah. And eventually I learned that, and I started saying no. Like, saying no is super powerful. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a friend that I've been working out with in the morning, and he's a private chef. And when people ask to hire him for like catering and stuff, and he does some things like that. But he usually tells people, no, this is not a typical catering company. They're not a big company. It's just me and a couple other people. And we make very, very healthy meals. Like, we're very health conscious. And then the people are like, they're like, I want to be health conscious. And he's like, well, he'll explain it more a little bit. But he said that every time he says that, it's never like, oh, okay, never mind. They're always like, well, how much? Like, what do I got to do? How do I do this?
Yeah.
And then same thing with like meal prep. He's like, well, meal prep is like really takes a long time. So you're going to get, charged even extra for that. But he makes it an exclusive thing, and then they want to be part of it that much more.
That's a huge lesson. Yeah. Saying no, making things exclusive, focusing on one thing and not getting distracted. And nowadays it's easy, right, to get distracted and try to do 50 million things. So someone's new starting out, they might say, well, Mark has a podcast, he has a gym, he does that, and then they try to do all that at once, which you didn't try to do all that at once. You've done these things in steps, which is what people need to do.
What was something that made you start the podcast? Like, how long have you been doing it for?
I've been doing the podcast for 4 years, and that was kind of when I was into this journey of just personal development and becoming just a better version of myself. And it's funny because I said I went into college wanting to be a communications major and like host a radio show,
Right.
but I was way too quiet and insecure for so many years. So then, like around 39, which was 4 years ago, it's like, man, I'm about to be 40. I gotta start doing some of this shit that I want to do forever. I gotta push myself harder out of my comfort zone. And so we started the podcast, and that was one of the main reasons why, just for me to push myself out there more.
Having that many clients, you must have learned an awful lot about communication.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Right? Like
yeah,
'cause
having those conversations all day.
Well, some people, if you don't have enough contact with, they'll kind of fall off sometimes.
Totally, 100%.
Like, oh, what happened to Billy or whatever? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know, man. Some people you got to like text them or call them or email them or whatever. You got to
Yeah.
make sure. Other people don't need that. They're just going to show up.
Yeah,
They know the training starts at 4 and they're just there.
yep.
And then other people are like, oh, I didn't know you. It's like, you know the routine. You know the
Right.
days. You know
Yeah.
when we work out.
Yeah,
So that must have been something that can kind of carry over into what you're doing today.
definitely. I mean, that's part of being a good coach is kind of knowing the individual personalities and kind of, knowing you're part therapist, and you have, like, some people do really well when you break their balls. Some people, they kind of need to be coddled a little bit more, and you got to know that. And then if you're not that kind of guy, like you said before, say no. Like if you're one of those guys who needs to be coddled, don't come to this fucking gym. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you got to be good with that stuff. And you got to know that business is relationships and it's people skills. So for so many years, speaking for myself, and I know a lot of people do, like, you focus on your training knowledge, your nutrition knowledge, your body knowledge of the body, whatever it might be, and then your marketing skills, your sales skills, or whatever to make money. But you don't work on your people skills and your relationship building skills. And at the end of the day, that's really the most important thing. Like, can you connect with another human being? Can you be likable?
Right.
And that's going to grow your business, and that's going to change your life, really. So,
How long? You said you've been doing the podcast for 4 years.
yeah.
And what kind of guests do you have on there? I know I've been on there.
Yeah.
My brother's been on there
Yeah.
before. Is it kind of a wide array of people, or is it mainly fitness?
It is a wide array of people. I'd say it's probably, I'd say at least 70% fitness, but we've had just people that I think are cool doing
Right.
cool stuff, pro wrestlers, friends of mine, authors of some of my favorite books. It tends to be fitness and personal development and someone that's doing something cool. And so there's takeaways for the audience and whatnot.
You went out to the Sorinex event that they have every
Yeah.
year, and you said you liked it a lot. It was
Dude,
cool.
it was amazing. Such a great event. Yeah. I mean,
I've heard nothing but good things about it. Yeah.
yeah, Bert's one of the coolest guys you could ever meet. His dad, obviously they've had the company for, I don't know, over 30 years now.
Their logo's a mustache.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than
No,
that.
no.
That
no.
kind of says it all.
Yeah. But they've just created such an incredible culture and environment where there's no egos. And a couple people said to me, this is the only event I've ever been at where all of the speakers are at attention and sitting within the first 10 rows, like paying attention to all the other speakers.
Oh,
Not
that's
like
cool.
we're in the back just drinking and hanging out. Like, fuck
Yeah.
Mark speaking. Like, everybody's
Yeah.
up front. Like, I want to hear what everybody's saying and pay respect to them. And then it's a really fun thing where, so there's speakers 9 to 5. I spoke this year. It was super fun. And it's funny, one of the things I said to Bert was, for whatever reason, I grew up, insecure and shy and quiet. I don't get nervous. Like, if you brought me to the Staples Center right now and said, go on stage, I'd do it in 2 seconds. But in front of the 600 guys there, I said to Bert after, that was the most nervous I ever was. And he was like, why? I said, it was kind of just out of respect for you and your family and your dad and the culture you created here and how everyone else is trying to do their best job, And I was like, we all kind of want to hold the standard for you.
There's nothing worse than watching people go before you too.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, oh, great. That's why whenever we do stuff, like, I always just grab the mic and I just start going first.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, I'm just gonna kill everybody in the beginning, and then they can try to figure out how to catch up. later.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it was cool,
Yeah.
and it's cool to meet some guys that I've admired from afar from so many years, but didn't know, like you or Brandon Lilly or someone like that. I'm just getting to meet these guys in the last few months, and it's perfect timing though too, because Brandon said had we met 5 years ago, he was a bigger asshole, I was a bigger asshole, so we probably wouldn't have gotten along. So it's cool to see,
Right.
even Joe DeFranco and I, we've known each other since '96. And we weren't friends for the first 5 or 10 years. We were kind of just acquaintances, but we were in competition. We were
Both from Jersey, right?
Jersey meatheads with an attitude, kind of want to beat each other. And now we hung out the other day, like we were really good friends, and we want to support each other. And I think that's something you could speak to too, right? Like when I was younger and more insecure, I didn't want to promote other people. Like I don't even want anyone to know Mark Bell exists because he might steal my fans and my customers, you know? Same thing with Joe or something. And now I'm like, dude, I promote everybody. Like, if you're a good person, you're doing good shit. Like, I want more people to know about you, you know?
Yeah, and you know, sometimes there's times where that's not appropriate or can be. It's not always in your best interest to always promote other people, but usually it's not going to hurt you the way that you think.
Yeah,
normally it's not going to hurt you the way that you think. Like I've been on Joe Rogan's podcast before. My brother and I have been on there, and you know, he's asked us point blank, like, "Hey, who else? You know, should we have?" And I tell him all the time, like, Stan Efferding. I'm sure he'll get around it. Stan Efferding will eventually be on the show. Yeah. But there's no reason for me to not mention Stan Efferding.
Right.
Like, Stan Efferding's not going to take anything from me, you know, and and I'm not going to take anything from him. Like, it's just gonna promote him more. Yeah. But it will also help me. I mean, that's the way things work.
Oh, exactly. Because everybody always remembers the person who referred them somewhere else.
And
like,
so
you're that connector.
And even if he doesn't say, even if he gets on there and has a great time, and even if he like, people are always expecting to kind of get that credit back or whatever, but like,
you can't do things expecting things in return like that.
Yeah, but the credit it's out there anyway. Like, it's in like the ether or whatever. It's in like the system. It's checked off next to you, and you don't need the other person to say, "Hey, man, thank you so much." You hope that they do that because that's just the common courtesy of the whole thing, right? But yeah, I've always found that to be interesting. You mentioned personal development. Now, it's impossible to have any sort of personal development if you're in the gym 12 hours a day, Monday through Monday, every single day for 12 years, right? Yeah. I mean, in the gym for that many hours. So you had to break free from that in order to kind of work on yourself and to probably think a lot more. I mean, because you don't have a second to think. All you're doing is working, right?
Right. Yeah, they say, I don't know if it's Warren Buffett. I could be wrong. But someone ultra successful like that plans 2-hour blocks in the middle of his day to this day just to think. But like you said, when you're doing that, like, you can't think when you're going nonstop. So what I finally did was, I hired more trainers at the gym and kind of weaned myself out of being there 12, 15 hours a day. And then that was kind of when I came to that realization in Jersey, because I had more time to think and I had more time to start reading all these different books and whatnot. And I was like, then I became more aware. I was like, I'm just not on the path I want to be on. I'm not really the person I want to be. Like, I'm comfortable and confident in a gym with 12 to 20 guys doing the thing, playing my kind of music. But then you get me out in real world situations, I'm not really the best. I'm not that confident. I'm not secure. I'm too focused on myself, like just focus on getting better, making more money, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't really a great person, I don't think, back then, And so I knew I had to change those things. And so having that time, like you said, to get out and think and evaluate myself, I was like, man, all right, I can start making some changes.
How'd you come to some of these conclusions? Is this through books and podcasts and different
It was
things?
all the above, yeah. It was just having that time.
You're like, wow, I'm a dick.
Yeah, yeah.
My friends are right. I'm an asshole.
Yeah. And then I just became more aware of people that were doing things that I admired and that I liked, and they're like, they're just doing things differently than I'm doing. They're approaching life differently. They're not quite as selfish. They're helping more people and doing things without expecting anything in return. And then it was just the insecurity too. I was like, I'm not going to get where I want to be if I'm just going to always, because we can tell ourselves this story and write this narrative. Like, look at you. You're in front of a camera or behind a mic all the time, but you grew up an insecure kid like me. Right. So you could tell yourself that story. You're 41 now. You could still be hiding and be like, oh, I'm just insecure. I can't do it, which a lot of people do. They're like, no, that's just who I am. I'm just introverted or I'm shy, and they do nothing. But you and I are proof that that's not true. Like, if you just push yourself, you can become someone else and do something. It's like first time you walk in the gym, you let's say you can only squat 95. You don't say, oh, I can't squat 405. I'll never squat 405. You just can't do it right now. You push yourself and get better. You can get better at anything, No,
I agree. And a lot of times I think people with some of the businesses they'll get into, or even somebody that already has a large business, they might try to get into something else and be like, oh, it's like a little side thing. Like, what a horrible perspective to have. Like, why would it be a little side thing? Why isn't it? Just treat it like you treat everything else. Yeah. And it'll turn into what it's going to turn into. Yeah,
because you're already putting limitations on it.
Yeah, you've already kind of created a ceiling for it. And I think, luckily for us, weights teaches you that. Lifting weights teaches you that right away, and it's very black and white. I've got a 14-year-old son. Did you do your homework, Jake? Did you do your homework, Jake? Yeah, Dad. Yeah, Dad. You can lie about that all day, and there's not a paper trail. I mean, nowadays they have everything online. You can kind of like look or whatever, right? But we still don't know if he lied or not until we get the report card.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still the same as it was years ago.
Yeah.
When it comes to weights, hey, you been working on your deadlift? You don't even have to ask anybody.
Right.
The guy goes to lift 315, it doesn't come off the ground. It's like, you haven't been doing your homework.
Yeah.
You haven't been doing your shit. You haven't been paying attention. You haven't been eating enough. You haven't been sleeping enough. You haven't been, it's an interesting thing because there's a pyramid that kind of leads you to some of these greater things. And people forget how important some of the things that seem like they're little and they seem like they're unrelated are the most related, like getting proper sleep, having proper nutrition. Like without sleep and nutrition, you can't have the building blocks for strength. And then you get people that ask you a question all the time. They're like, why are you hook gripping on your deadlift? And it's like, man, you're really like, if you're not sleeping and you're not eating properly, then there's no reason for us to talk about these various techniques or strategies, let alone programming. I mean, we're way off track. You sleep 5 hours, and we're trying to have a discussion about this. That is not going to work. And I see a lot of people, they'll go to bed, at 11 o'clock, they'll go to bed at midnight. And they're starting their day way too late, and then they're trying to catch up throughout the day, but they ate a bunch of junk, or they didn't eat at all, and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, I know there's intermittent fasting and some different things, but it's like, man, you got to lay some of this groundwork down if you want to be on that next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just you just see it in so many different aspects of life. What are some other business things that you want to venture into? Got some other things that you've been cooking up, or?
I'm just really focused on kind of growing the podcast, and we're doing way more video content, trying to get on your level now. And I love speaking, so I just
What do you prefer to talk about when you do some of that stuff?
So what I did for a few years. So here's kind of the history of my speaking, real quick in a nutshell. I had never spoken before in front of an audience. I was comfortable in the gym, but in 2007, CJ Murphy, who owns Total Performance Sports in Boston, brought me, Jim Wendler, Alan Cosgrove, and
Jim Wendler, the anti-social media, the anti-everything guy.
Dave Tate was there.
He's the best.
Smitty was there. So that was really my first time speaking in front of a big group, and I was absolutely the worst speaker ever. I was nervous. I was stuttering. I was just horrible. And I said to myself, like I said, telling ourselves a story or writing a narrative in your head, I was like, oh, I can't speak. I'm horrible at speaking. I can't speak in front of groups. And so I didn't do it probably for 5 years, till like 2012, maybe something like that. And then a couple guys invited me to speak out at smaller things. And I was like, let me try it again. I'm here. I've kind of worked on myself. I've been going through that journey a little bit. And I was pretty good, and I had fun at it. And then I started doing improv classes at Second City in Hollywood about 4 years ago. And that was a game changer for me. I was like, this is amazing. Because John Morrison, John Hennigan?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so John texted me one day, and he's like, hey, I'm doing a show at Second City tonight. You guys want to come check it out? I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to. So I go watch the show, and afterwards in the bar, I was like, dude, that was amazing. I loved it.
He's wild. He doesn't mind. I mean, he'll make the biggest ass
of
himself.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And then, do you know Ryan Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler's brother?
I do not know.
Okay, so he was, I don't know if he was at Ohio Valley. He was in NXT. But anyway, so Ryan was there. And I was like, man, I got to do this. And one of the teachers at Second City was with us at the bar after, and he said, next semester starts tomorrow. He's like, here, register right now. So I registered on my phone.
Oh, wow.
Started it, and within 15 minutes of the first class, I was like, all right, this is what I was missing. This is going to push me and make me better and get me out of my comfort zone. And I was better than I would have been a few years earlier because I had read so many books on communication skills and human nature and psychology. So some of the things we were learning in class, like listening skills and all that, I kind of grasped faster than some of the people there. And like you said, just from being in the gym and having all those one-on-one interactions all the time and getting better at listening to people. So that was a game changer for me. So then anytime someone would ask me to speak, I would speak more and get more confident each time. But what I was doing was, someone would say, hey, can you come in and speak? I'd say, yeah, what do you want me to talk about? And then it was kind of like high school. Like I would do my homework the night before. I would just write the talk the night before and then go and give it. And you can't become a good speaker just making shit up on the fly. Like if you look at a stand-up comedian, like Rogan or any of those guys, they work a year to come up with 1 hour. So they'll be at the Comedy Store every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. Sebastian Maniscalco, all those guys are doing that. And any good speaker at a Tony Robbins level, they'll work for a year to come up with one good talk. So then I started working on this talk about 2 years ago, and a bunch of my friends who I respect who were really good speakers, they suggested that my talk be something along the lines of super connector, because now, for so many years, I didn't know anybody, and now I know everybody,
right?
And I'm always connecting people. So, okay, why don't you tell your story, and then how you got to this level where when you have a UFC party at the house, there's 30 people over there, and they're all people you're fans of. They're pro wrestlers,
right.
They're authors of your favorite books, all this kind of shit. And how do you overcome that? So I've continued to kind of refine that talk because it's applicable to anything. So I could speak at a fitness event, a business event. So I did that at Sorinex. I did that at a business event in Boise a few weeks ago. I did that, I think, in San Diego. I just did that in New York. So I'm continuing to refine that and kind of add more comedy to it and more improv and more jokes. And, I get feedback from Jay, like, oh, how was my timing or my punchline on this one? So that's the one topic I'm working on now, and then I'll work on a second one after that.
Very cool. Yeah, improv classes and that kind of stuff, I think, is probably something that everybody should engage in at some point.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, even like I'm in front of a camera a lot, but I would even be terrified. I've done some stuff like that when I was in school, and it's just awkward.
Yeah.
The teacher will get up and like just ask you to do something really weird. I remember in one of my classes, the teacher told people like make love to the chair.
Yeah.
And like some people would, or they'd say something different to each person. And a lot of people would go, what? Because like they're already they're already worried about what they're going to do. They heard what the teacher said.
Yeah.
But they're like, what? Then they're trying to like reinterpret it. And there was other people that, boom, they snap right into it. And they didn't care what it was.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, how'd that guy do that?
Yeah. It's amazing. But it really gives you life skills, like listening skills and thinking on your feet and not planning ahead. So I love to do it now. Like whenever I speak, I incorporate some improv and I'll bring people up. So at Sorinex in front of 600 people, I got Brandon Lilly up, and I asked for a suggestion from the audience, and our suggestion was that we were in a hot tub together, and we just had to go, and it was so much fun. And Brandon just went for it. He didn't care. He was hilarious. He was really good.
I'm
funny.
Sure that he would probably dig that, because he I've seen him do all kinds of funny stuff.
Yeah,
I've seen him do like karaoke and different things like that.
Yeah, crip walking and all that.
Yeah, that kind of fits him well. As you've gotten older, have you noticed? Like as a young nervous kid who's kind of afraid to really say what's on your mind, have you noticed, like, here in California, you got people like surfing or skateboarding or these various things that are kind of going around. Do you kind of notice that you're less fearful of those things, and you're like, yeah, fuck it, I'll try that?
Yeah.
Whereas when you were young, you're like, I'm not trying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like as a kid, I would do more reckless stuff,
right?
For sure. I'm a little, I have a little more trepidation about certain things now, and then, but I definitely want to push myself to try more stuff. Like I box with my friend Tony Jeffries, who's an Olympic medal winning boxer now, and anything that I'm like, oh, that looks kind of scary. Like I was too scared to surf for years, so now I do that, and I do kind of push myself more because. As you know, when if you fear something and then you push through it, it just makes you a better person.
It feels good.
Yeah, it feels good. Yeah, I mean, it feels like you just won like a championship or something when you do it. So I do continually push myself way more and way harder than I used to as a kid, definitely. But some things, it's funny. Like the other night, we were on a busy street in New York, and there was a bunch of like 20-something-year-old kids, and it was just three of us. We were trying to go find somewhere quiet to catch up and talk after we had dinner. It was like 11 o'clock, and that was making me nervous. We're back in the day, but like, oh, let's get in there and party and start slamming shots. I was like, I feel like someone's going to punch me in the back of the head or something. Like, I want to get out of here, It's weird.
This place is too noisy.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're.
Yeah.
So you know you're way too old. Man, is the music got to be this loud in here?
Yeah. It's funny because I love music as much as anyone I know, and I'm always cranking music. But yeah, I'll catch myself saying that now, or like, there's too many people. I got to get away from this.
Like shit, man. I've become that guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I really have haven't been afraid to try different things, and so far. Every different thing I've tried, it's led to something more fun. It's led to something better, and I think it's something that people should understand is that you might not be great at it. Maybe it's not even your thing. Maybe you just do it for like 2 weeks and you find out, that sucked, or maybe you revisit it again.
Right.
I'm kind of hoping after I do this bodybuilding show coming up, for a little while.
When's your show?
It's at the end of August.
Oh, come
Yeah.
on. Wow.
Yeah, it's like about a month away.
Where
and
is
it? It's just in Sacramento.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was hoping like after that, just before some of this came around, I was running, and I was just started running every day. And when I started that, I was like 255, and now I'm 225. So once I kick back out of this bodybuilding thing, I'd love to work on some of that again. And running is something I just never have done as an adult. And like you said, you're just like, oh, I can't do that. That's not me. I'm not good at that, right? And I've learned that that's just a shitty excuse. So there are certain things that I won't do just because I don't have a previous history of doing them. I like to stay pretty grounded. I'm not going to like ski. I'm not going to surf. I just think that the learning curve on it would be so great that I probably wouldn't have a very good time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I still got to keep it all like in perspective of things that I feel that I can at least adapt to a little bit easier. But those were things I've been thinking about. And even yoga, it's like people have been urging me to do yoga forever. They tell me all the time, like, man, you're really stuck together. Your body's real stiff, and it would benefit you. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, well, what do I got to lose? Why not just try it?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll feel good.
Yeah. So have you jumped in yet or not yet?
I have not yet,
okay,
but I need to.
Yeah.
I need to. I mean, that's kind of the point. You were mentioning John Hennigan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know John Hennigan and I's history at all?
I'm sure John's told me, but I can't remember.
So John, he's been a friend of mine for a long time. I met him here in Los Angeles in El Segundo at the Raw Training Center, which was like an MMA gym and a pro wrestling gym. And that's the first time I saw him, and he was just coming off of the show Tough Enough, I think it was called.
Oh, yeah.
And he won the show, but like he couldn't say anything about it at the time because the show was not officially over as it was playing on television. But I kind of assumed, I was like, oh, he probably won. That's probably why he's here. And he was just shredded.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, my God, this kid looks like an anatomy chart. He was just so lean. He had like striations through his stomach and stuff. It's like, holy shit. Anyway, he and I became friends, and he shared a lot of stuff with me, like his passion for making movies, and he always liked acting, and he was got a creative mind and stuff. So we became friends. Long story short, we met up again in Ohio Valley when I was wrestling in Louisville, Kentucky, for a while. And as time progressed, I left the wrestling business and started getting more into like the fitness industry, kind of through powerlifting, I guess you'd say, and then had the idea of the slingshot. And as I was playing around with this idea for the slingshot, I was able to get some money from my parents. I had some of my own money, and I needed money from somebody else. And so a friend of mine stepped up, and he was like, I got you. And I had a misunderstanding with how it was going to work to get this thing off the ground. And I thought that I would send half the money to the manufacturer, and I thought they would send the product, and I'd send them the other half. But it was more like I sent them half the money. They made the product, and then to ship it, they needed the rest of the deposit. Well, anyway, my friend that stepped up to help, he's like, man, I'm sorry, dude. Like, this deal fell through for me, and I don't have the money. It was like 20 or 30 grand. It wasn't like it was cheap, It was a good chunk of money, and so I was like, fuck, man. I'm like, who can I talk to that has that kind of money just sitting in the bank, Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to bother, because I've been friends with John Cena for a long time. I'm like, I don't want to bother Cena, because like he and I are good friends, but I was like, I never really wanted to ever bother him that way.
Yeah.
I know he works really hard for his stuff too, and I just never felt comfortable with any of that. So I was pretty close with Hennigan, so I was like, well, let me call Hennigan. So I call him, and I'm super nervous. I'm like, I kind of need some money, and got this invention, and he's like, dude, just tell me what you need. And I was like, well, I need, maybe it was 20 grand. I can't remember the exact amount. I was like, I need 20 grand. He's like, well, you said it's for an invention and you feel really good about it, you're excited about it. And I said, absolutely, I'm going to make this thing work. And he goes, it'll be in the mail tomorrow. He'll be on your porch in the morning.
No shit. That's
And
amazing. I never knew that.
He fucking sent it like first class mail or whatever. And
that's
next day
amazing.
mail,
See, that's what a good dude John is. He would have never told me that. That's super cool.
Yeah, he's a savage.
That's
sure.
amazing.
Yeah, it was.
I love that.
It was really amazing. And then like, I told him, I was like, I'll pay you back in a year. And he just is like, look, man, he's like, you're gonna need more than a year. You know? Like, it's okay. Like, don't worry. Like, you'll pay back when you pay back. And I did pay him back, but he was right. It did take time because even though we accumulated some cash through the sales of the slingshot, it took a while for us to have the capital to be able to pay him back, plus fulfill orders and order more stuff and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a really
that's a great story.
It's a crazy connection.
Yeah.
And
super cool.
And you were mentioning how your friends encouraged you to do your talks about being kind of a connector.
Yeah.
And I love that kind of stuff. I think that is important.
Yeah.
I mean, since you got here, you're like, hey, do you know so and so? Do you know this guy? You know that guy? And it is important to communicate like that. I'm sure, like at these UFC parties that you have, there's probably a lot of business that's being done. Even though everyone's just friends hanging out, drinking a beer or something, but at the same time, somebody's like, "Oh yeah, give me your info," right?
Definitely, yeah, all the time.
People are hitting each other up.
Yeah. I love that.
What do you have coming up? Any travels, anything like that going on?
We got, let's see, I got a couple. So we're going to Montana. I've never been to Montana, so we're gonna go there. We'll see Smitty out there, which is gonna be good. Just gonna go around for a few days, and then
what's going on there?
Just never been. So my friend of 25 plus years, he does a lot of, I guess for lack of a better term, like life coaching, and he's always been as a kid at 12 years old. His name is Mike DeSanti. He knows Brandon. Like Smitty has worked with him, and Brandon, Ben Pekulski, and guys like that are big fans of him now. He helps me do these events that I do, but at 12 years old, everybody meditates now. He was meditating when he was 12. He was reading Thoreau. He was into all this Native American stuff. So he's like certified in all these different ceremonies.
Amazing. He's into all that at 12 and he didn't kill himself by now.
Yeah. Sophomore, I don't remember, sophomore or junior year of high school in Jersey, he went into the woods behind his house and slept outside for a year. He built like this little Native American hut.
People are like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So he's running kind of like this ceremony and this week out in Montana, and a bunch of guys are going. Smitty's going to it, and then we're gonna hang out with all of them afterwards. And
sounds like a ayahuasca party. You guys gonna run around the woods naked?
There's some of that. Some of that's gonna be going down. Yeah.
Sacrificing sheep or whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we're doing that, and then we have I have one of my events here, and then we're going up to Seattle. Do you know Becky Lynch? WWE wrestler? Okay. She's a good friend of mine. So, and she's a huge Pearl Jam fan as well. So a bunch of us are going up just to see Pearl Jam and hang out in Seattle. And then we're going to Chicago.
Some of the wrestlers, it's sometimes weird. Sometimes I do know them and I don't realize it because it's like the wrestling name versus the real name.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, I don't know. I might know who she is.
Yeah. Sure. With the red hair. She and Charlotte Flair are best friends.
She may have even come to my gym now that I think about it.
Maybe. Yeah, but so we're doing that, then we're going to Chicago, and then we're probably going, at some point, we're going back to New York and New Jersey to film more stuff there and do some stuff there.
What are you trying to do with the content? Like what type of content are you guys producing? Is it like kind of based on lifting or based on kind of the adventure? Like is it a little bit more like
little both.
Matt Vincent-ish, or is it a little bit more like what I do?
Both, kind of.
Combination, okay.
Yeah. So just going around visiting people, doing vlog kind of stuff. Just all the above, kind of.
How's your diet and stuff, especially when you travel? Are you able to kind of keep up with it and stay intact with it, or you don't care too much?
So what's interesting is because you had said now you're doing more of a bodybuilding, like higher carb, lower fat diet. I actually tend to look better and perform better on that kind of diet. But when you're traveling, it's hard to find sweet potatoes and rice. Like the only carb you can get is fries half the place you go, especially if you're going like to Middle America.
Isn't that really interesting?
It's so weird.
It's a really weird thing that you can't find a healthy carb.
Yeah.
And so then carbs get a bad rep, right? And then you know, we got like our war on carbs that we call it, and that's kind of why there has to be a war on carbs, is because there's such shitty carbohydrates that are available. Every once in a while at some of these places you can get some fruit. But that's about it. You can't really find. You're not going to get a regular dry potato or and like eating a dry potato is kind of rough.
Yeah.
eating white rice isn't so bad. You throw some salt on there,
Yeah.
or some soy sauce, and
Yeah.
you're good to go.
Yeah, so when I travel, I tend to go lower carb because you could always just get meat somewhere. Just get meat and salad, and that's easier.
But you got to cut out something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're trying to balance, out the energy system. I don't love the whole calorie thing because I think it can sometimes be like an inaccurate measure. But
Yeah.
it is the only thing that we have to measure the energy, and so you have to figure out, like, am I going to eat more fat and less carbs, or am I going to eat more carbs and less fat?
Yeah.
You got to figure out a way to balance it out.
Yeah. And I for so many years, I ate shit just to, when I used to spend a ton of time with Wendler and Tate, I used to eat a ton. And like, I graduated high school, same height I am now, 147 pounds, and I was like up in the 220s, but my face was like this big, and I was just eating like Dave. Dave and I used to hang out all the time. He would come stay at my house, and we would have 6 egg McMuffins for breakfast with a gallon of milk and all that, So I just looked like this, and I thought I was huge, but I was just like fat,
I'm getting so strong.
Yeah, I was getting strong, but I was just a giant dough ball. And so I never actually got visible abs. When I tried to get visible abs for years, I would go low carb, and it just wasn't working for me. So when I was 39, I did like a bodybuilding diet, like you're doing, like low fat, high carb, and I was able to get visible abs for the first time in my life on like 500 grams of carbs a day, like maybe 200 grams of protein, 500 grams of carbs, and like 80 grams of fat.
Right.
Yeah. So I played with that on and off, but I think it's good to switch it up. Everybody gets bored, and I think it's just good to switch it up. Like if you want,
you're not a Tupperware kind of guy, right?
Nah.
Yeah. I hate that too, and that's what I hate about this current diet is that when I'm on a low-fat diet, I'm not really worried about the frequency.
Yeah.
I might still eat 4 to 6 times a day, depending on how the training's going, things like that. But traditionally, I would use some form of intermittent fasting and eat like 2 or 3 times a day. It's just easier.
Yeah.
And I'd work out in the morning, fasted. I'd get all my work done, and then by the time, I don't know, 3 or 4 o'clock rolled around, then I'd start eating, and I'd eat maybe twice, and then kind of rest up and go to sleep and start the whole day over. You know? And just kind of repeat. But it was nice because there's no meal prep.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of like just cooking up stuff and being prepared. But
I find my digestion's a little better on lower carb. Like if I eat red meat, I have no digestive issues whatsoever. So like this morning before I came here, I had probably I don't know, maybe like 8 ounces of buffalo and an avocado, and I feel fine.
Right.
Whereas sometimes if I was stuffing down sweet potatoes or rice, I could be pretty bloated and stuffed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes you gassy.
Yeah.
Sometimes eating some of those carbs. I think one thing that happens sometimes with the carbohydrates too is that they do taste good, and you tend to like, you're really like eating them like you're an animal. You're really like stuffing them in your face. You're not even realizing it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you're just not chewing it. I think with a steak or something like that, you really have no choice.
Yeah.
You got to really chew that thing up.
Yeah.
Plus the nature of it is it has more fat and stuff, so it's going to digest slower.
Yeah.
Probably gives your body time to kind of break it down,
Yep.
Separately rather than just the body getting hit with everything all at once.
Yeah.
And like even a potato, like with the skin and stuff, it's probably a little tough to digest it and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
You have any kids? I know you're married, right?
Yeah, I've been married for 6 years now, I think. I don't have kids.
Did you meet your wife out here?
No, I met her in Jersey, and I was going to move here. So it'll be 10 years ago this September that I met her, and I was actually going to move to L.A. that October. Then I ended up staying there another 3 years with her, and then we moved out. Yeah, but we don't have any kids.
So she's from New Jersey as well?
She's from Jersey, yeah.
Yeah. What was that like, kind of convincing her to move out here? Was it not hard?
Well,
or was it brutal?
So she's not as much of a natural risk taker as I am. So she was nervous because I had told her from day one, I was like, look, I'm never getting married. It's just not in the plans for me. I don't know. I just don't want to get married.
There you go.
Yeah.
Roped her in.
Right.
So now she's more interested. She's leaning in, right?
Right. Yeah.
She's like, wait, what's this? Huh?
Exactly. Jedi mind tricks. So she wasn't, I had said to her a few months into it, I was like, I really want to move to Cali. I want to move to Santa Monica. I want to live on the beach. I want to get out of here. And she's like, I barely know you. I can't do that. So then about it, I was like, all right. I hung out. A year later, I said I want to do it. And she was teaching at the time. And I was still sticking with the I'm never getting married thing. So she was like, I got to stay here an extra year to get tenure. So if we break up, I'll have some security and I can move back and teach again. So I said, okay. And then eventually we ended up getting married anyway. So And she loved it. What we did was, because she had the summers off and I had slowly started transitioning out of people seeing me on the gym floor every day. Like I had a number of trainers. So we took a month and then 2 months, 2 summers in a row, and rented a furnished place like this out here. Not as nice as this, but out here, 2 summers in a row. And within a day, she was like, "Oh, I see why you want to live here, why you want to move here. I'm down." So,
oh, that's cool.
yeah.
It's hard for people to leave the East Coast. A lot of people have. I mean, not that the families here aren't close, but that's what I dealt with a lot with my friends. Is like they're all still there.
Yeah.
You know, and they won't move because they're real family oriented. Even within my own family, like they live on top of each other. Basically, they live like they literally live on the same street.
Yeah.
A lot of my family, and they could not imagine. Forget moving somewhere. They don't even go on vacation hardly.
Right. No, I know
they
a lot
might
of people
go
like
to
that
Florida or something like that. Like they might, you know, but it's going to be on the East Coast. They're going to stay over there.
Yeah.
I mean, they're finally, all of them are coming out at the end of next month for my dad's 70th birthday.
Oh, okay.
So that'll be cool. But they're all terrified. Like they never, like a lot of them have not even been on a plane.
Right. And then we get a bunch of people who visit who are like, "Oh, I want to move here. I see why you moved," and then nothing ever happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's hard for people to really. Some people, I guess, some people just don't. They don't envision how their life could be.
Yeah.
A little bit more on their own.
Yeah.
And I think it's scary for people. Like, oh man, my mom and dad aren't going to be nearby, and my aunt and my cousin and my
right.
But really, like once I moved, I mean, it sucks. But even if I still lived there, I wouldn't talk to anybody anyway because I had got my own stuff going on and I had my own family. And so it doesn't matter if they're 45 minutes down the street or whatever, 45 minutes away versus them being, you know, a 6-hour flight away.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's not going to probably happen anyway.
Yeah.
Even
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, even my we have, you know, a lot of relatives that live near us, and we see each other quite a bit, but, you know, sometimes just life happens, and they got their kids, we got our kids, and they're hustling them around to wherever. We don't see them for 2 or 3 months at a time anyway.
Right. But your parents are out here now.
Yeah, I live in Davis, California.
Yeah.
And then my wife and I, you know, through all the stuff that we've been able to do with the business and everything, we were able to move my parents. We bought the house right next door to us.
Wow.
That's
so cool.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
That was probably about 4 years ago, probably something like that. Yeah.
And they love it, your parents?
Yeah, they love it. They're right next door, and my kids love it.
Yeah.
My kids will get mad at me and my wife, and they're like, "We're going to grandma's.
Yeah.
We're going to grandpa's," and they slam the door. We're like, "Cool."
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, stay over there.
Yeah.
You know?
And your parents are doing well?
Yeah, they're doing good.
Yeah.
My dad is doing good. My mom had a surgery like on her leg / back. She had this kind of back thing going on for a while where she had some numbness in her leg. But she's been rehabilitating from that, so she's getting better. So we're hoping she can move around a little bit more. She's dropped some weight and stuff like that too. So hopefully we can get her on the comeback trail too.
Nice.
You know, my dad had some crazy issues years ago where he was like in the hospital for like 70 days in a row. He had this cancer type thing going on, and
oh man,
yeah, it was nasty. It was like he was coming from California, coming back to New York for tax season, and something happened in his stomach or something. His stomach got real bloated. He thought he just had to take a shit or something. He didn't know what was going on, and the pain just got worse and worse. His stomach started to stick out more and more, and he was in so much pain he passed out. But they were still in the air. They were like over like the Mississippi or something like that, and the pilots kind of, you know, they're not going to reroute a plane, really for anything.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very rarely. Maybe if somebody can't breathe, maybe, you know, but then they still can't land it fast enough to really make that big of a difference anyway. So there was not a medical doctor on the plane, but there was like a veterinarian or something, somebody who at least had some education, right?
Yeah.
And they were able just to simply calm him down, and he like passed out, and then they took him to Jamaica Queens Hospital, and you know, that place is used to dealing with people that have been shot and stabbed and different shit like that.
Yeah.
So they're not really used to some of these more complicated things. But he had, you know, some sort of, he had some sort of leakage of his gut or something like that caused all this, because he had cancer years ago. Anyway, long story short, he was just up and down and up and down. And he's a pretty heavy guy. I would say he's normally probably 240, 250. He's only like 5'2". You know, he's pretty short. But his weight plummeted way down. He lost like 100 pounds while he was in the hospital. His face was all gaunt, and we almost lost him a couple times. He was able to kind of battle back, and he's been doing good. I mean, that was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And he's a tough bastard.
Yeah.
You know, those old timers are
right,
made out of something different than the rest of us.
For sure.
Know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been amazing having them around, and that has been a real kind of turning point in my life, that he was able to get through that, because of all the time that he's able to spend with my kids. Has been really, really awesome. My kids love hanging out there.
That's great to hear.
Like, even while we've been here, like, we want to go back and see Grandma and Grandpa.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're in Malibu.
Yeah.
Just relax, have some fun.
Right.
Where can people find you?
JasonFerruggia.com, or since that's super hard to spell, they can go to j.fit, jay.fit, and renegaderadiopodcast.com.
I hope you start your own gym up, so next time I come down here, I can
that'd be great.
I can throw down over there. That'd be really cool.
Absolutely.
All right, my man. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.
That was awesome, dude.
Thank you.
Thank you.